Okay, lots of trades today. Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack, where the Jazz just defeated the Golden State Warriors in Salt Lake City. But the big news is there are all sorts of trades. They are fast and furious, and there's going to be more before the deadline tomorrow. So let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So the Jazz were involved in the big multi-team Jimmy Butler deal that went down shortly before the Jazz game started. And the Jazz were able to get some draft capital out of this deal. They're more or less included as a facilitator by taking on some salary. That's the role that the Jazz are playing. But in the deal, they did get draft capital, and on the other side of it, they are in the possession of Dennis Schroeder at the current time. And we'll see if by the end of tomorrow they're still in possession of Dennis Schroeder. Most likely, I would say that they're not going to be in possession of Dennis Schroeder. So we'll see what they can attain and turn that player into in terms of draft capital, because I'm assuming that's what the Jazz are trying to get. So with the second rounds now, in the last few days, they have 4 second-round picks. I mean, they are acquiring a lot of second-round picks. What you think about second-round picks is, everybody has their own opinion. Some people think they're completely useless. I don't think any pick is completely useless. There are a lot of second rounds changing hands at the current time. Any thoughts?
Yeah, we got rid of PJ Tucker as part of that. So it was a guy that we intended to either cut, or buy out or trade. So we facilitated the trade with PJ Tucker. And with that, we got a 2031 second round pick from the Heat, I believe. Let me just confirm that. 2031 second round pick from the Heat. And as you said, Dennis Schroeder, who is a quality point guard or a quality combo guard, whatever you want to call him, in the NBA. I don't know if he's a starter, but he was starting on New Jersey and actually played excellent this year. He went to Golden State, and I think Golden State is really hard to fit in, honestly, for a lot of players. It'll be really interesting to see what Butler does when he goes there. But I think we picked up a quality guy. And honestly, I think by 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Dennis Schroeder's on his way somewhere else, and we get more second-round picks. So I'm really happy about that trade. Who cares what happens to Golden State right at the end of the day? But I'm really happy from the Utah Jazz standpoint is whether you think, like you said, is whether you think those picks are good or not. If we bundle together 5 or 6 second round picks, we can get something for them, right? And that's like the goal is when we need to pick up a player or otherwise, we now have like this boatload of second round picks and more tomorrow that we're going to get. So I'm pretty excited about it. I was happy with the trade.
Well, I think any draft picks they can currently get, I think, is a good thing. I don't care if it's first. I don't care if it's second. I just want draft choices. I mean, yeah, I don't want second-round picks for John Collins, but if we can help facilitate trades and take on second-round picks, I'm all for it. And considering we didn't have Schroeder yesterday, and now we do have Schroeder, and tomorrow if we don't have Schroeder and we have second-round picks, then I'm pleased with the deal. I'm quite certain that the Jazz aren't going to get a first-round pick for Dennis Schroeder. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but at least maybe we can get something for him. But I don't want Schroeder. I would prefer not Schroeder not be on the roster by the end of tomorrow. I don't want him taking time from the young players that are in development. So I hope the roster is trimmed by the end of tomorrow. That's what I hope. And Hood Schifino too. I don't know if he's going to stick around or not. I mean, he may be on his way somewhere else. Who knows? It's up in the air. I don't know if the Jazz like him or not. No idea.
Yeah. Although I bet you would say, and I would say, if you of the two players you'd rather have on your roster after 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Dennis Schroeder or Hood Shafino, which one would you choose?
Well, I would choose Hood Shafino
Right.
personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know nothing about that guy. Like I previously said, that guy's basically not even played in the NBA so far. But I'd still pick him just because he was a first round pick this last season, and
Mhm.
Schroeder's been around a long time now.
Yeah, he could be the biggest stiff we ever seen. The guy that we both dislike, but we'd still rather have him because there's optionality there. We don't know what we have, so we'd rather like see like, okay, what can the guy get? Now, if they flip him for somebody else, great, right? I don't really care with him, but I'd rather him be there than Schroeder because you're right. If he's on the roster, our friend Hardy will play him, so I don't want him to be on. I do
Yeah,
not want him to be on the roster tomorrow.
yeah,
Like I was thrilled when he waved Mo Bamba because you thought Mo Bamba was not going to get any minutes. I was like really worried, like, oh man, we got Mo Bamba. He's gonna be taking minutes from Flip, and fortunately he was cut.
yeah. Well, I mean, if Patty Mills can get minutes, anybody can really get minutes because Patty Mills at
Yeah,
this point is a borderline even NBA player, and yet Hardy was there playing him. Like inexplicable, but
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
All
Yeah, if
right.
Biden was playing basketball, he would get minutes in Hardy's
Yeah, yeah,
system.
yeah. Absolutely. So that's the Jimmy Butler deal. And in terms of Jimmy Butler going to Golden State, I honestly I don't even know how that's going to even turn out for that team. Um, I think that he can help them, but he's getting paid an awful lot of money. I mean, another 2 years after this at 120, so 60 a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I don't know. I don't think they're in a position to contend with Jimmy Butler. I just don't. But we'll see what happens. Any thoughts on Golden?
Yeah, I agree with you. I honestly think what they're doing is they're appeasing Steph Curry and
Yeah,
saying, "Look, we owe this to you. We
yeah,
screwed up. They gave away a protected first round pick. That was it. And they got Jimmy Butler in. He doesn't make him a championship contender. Although I think he's going to be really motivated. So I think he's going to like really like go all out from here in through the end of the season. But I still don't think they have it, right? I mean they gave away Wiggins, who was really productive this year. And so you're going to get more time for Kaminga, but Kaminga's not. He's like the Keontae, right? He's not really consistent and productive. And so how's that team going to win? I don't see it, but they still have some assets, right? I mean, they still have some assets. I guess though they got the salary issue though. That's interesting.
yeah. I mean, they
Uh,
have major league salary problems. That's the thing. Is it? I mean, they have massive salary issues.
yeah, so they may be stuck. They may not be able to bring somebody else in because of the second apron. I haven't looked to know exactly how that's going to play out, but they may be stuck. They may not be able to bring somebody else in, and if that's their team, good luck. Good luck against Oklahoma City and some of these other teams. I just don't see them competing against them. I think they'll get their clocks cleaned if even with Butler, and then like the interesting thing about Butler is he had an option for $50 million. He threatened not to exercise, but essentially, if he would have exercised, he would have got 50 million. So they essentially raised him. He waived. I think he
Hmm.
canceled that. They raised him $10 million for next season, then another like 60 million for the following season. That's a lot of money for 35-year-old Jimmy
Yeah,
Butler. I could see them really regretting that
yeah,
next year.
yeah, yeah. That's a ton. That's a ton of money to play an aging
Yeah.
player. I mean, 35 is really old for NBA terms. A lot of guys don't even make it to 35 just because their bodies break down. And
Mhm.
I mean, look at Chris Middleton. The guy is
Yeah.
younger than that, and he's uh, he's really struggling physically. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Plus, with Jimmy Butler too, you get all of he's forced his way out of three teams right now. Like honestly, if the Jazz say the Jazz were still Donovan, Rudy, our friend Royce O'Neal, Quinn Snyder was still there, and we had a chance to get Jimmy Butler, would you want that trade? Without giving up, Don or Rudy. Would you want to take Jimmy Butler on your team for 2 years?
Not based on what I know now. No,
Yeah.
no.
And I'm the same. Even though we would both say that's a great basketball player, no question about it. But he causes so much friction. I don't want Jimmy Butler on my team. And man, you got Draymond and Jimmy Butler on the same team. Let's maybe it's going to be fun to watch. Not being a Golden State fan, but that team. Curry deserves it. Like I'm tough on Stephen sometimes, but man, that guy creates so much havoc. He's such a great shooter. He's always moving. He creates so much havoc. Their wins, let's face it was Curry. He is so good that it's Curry. And they probably do owe it to him. They owed it to him in the offseason to like leverage up. But and that's probably what they're doing, but they're not going to win. Let's face it, they're just not good enough.
Yeah, I don't foresee that team as being good enough. That's my feeling. So I don't think this trade helps them enough to make it worthwhile, personally. Okay, so that's that deal, and there are obviously other trades being trade rumors. There's chatter, but do you have, based on that article that you sent me, do you have any other thoughts on anything that might happen? I mean, did they say anything that looks likely or unlikely or anything like that?
Well, and we'll share it. We'll do a separate session, or Boris can do a separate session on it tomorrow in the morning and just talk about it, perhaps. But a good article in one of the Salt Lake City blog sites is just talking about who is most likely to be traded. And like the first tier, which I agreed with, were Hood Schifino, PJ Tucker, which has now been traded, and Svi. Now, why? Let's face it, because they're the easiest to trade. One, Hood Schifino is not connected to the team. No one knows him. Hardy hasn't even called him. Probably has now, but hadn't, a day ago. Svi is a low contract and a quality NBA player, got minutes tonight. I think that was obvious. They were trying to showcase him, right? And so those are the three that were most likely to be traded. But even though all we talk about is Collins and Clarkson and Colin Sexton as being the ones to be traded. So like in that next tier were like the other veterans, like Collins and Clarkson. And I think of those two, my gut is Clarkson's the more likely to be traded because as you said, you had a podcast today. Collins is good. Collins is very good. And I have to give both Collins and Will Hardy credit for that because he is a much better player than we got. So we can't give that away for a bag of potato chips, right? We have to get some real value back, which makes him harder to trade. So I think, but he's in that second tier. And interestingly, this author put in the third tier, like the young guys, and he put Keontae there because, notwithstanding what Will Hardy may say, it could be, let's face it could be that Danny Ainge is kind of thinking, before this guy's value goes down, we still think teams out there think he's, got, good and up and comer, et cetera. Maybe we send him off. So it was interesting, like who was in that third tier because Keontae was there. And honestly, I don't disagree with that. Now, if Hardy was making the decision, I think there's no way he's in the third tier. But with Danny Ainge making the decision, he's not an emotional guy. This is like a very cutthroat, GM type of guy. It's like, this is maybe Ochai Agbaji. We all like him, but I don't know, right? So that was interesting.
Yeah, if Keontae is included in a package, I think that's the only way he gets traded. But if he's included in a package, I'm all for it. I think that would be a good thing for the franchise moving forward. But, yeah. I mean, if we quickly let's transition and look. I mean, Keontae had one of his better games tonight.
Yeah.
So let's just look at this really nice. So this is tonight's game, and Keontae, if we just look at the highlights, I mean, the Jazz won the game. Unfortunately, not great. I mean, they came back from like 10 down with 3 minutes left or something like that. But Keontae went 8 for 13, 4 for 8 from 3, 6 for 8 from the free throw line, 6 assists, 1 turnover, and he scores 26 points, which was the second highest on the team behind Clarkson's 31. And then Clarkson had one of his best games that he's had in a long time tonight. And he scores 31 on 10 for 19 shooting, 5 for 8 from 3, 6 for 6 from a free throw line, 5 assists, and only 1 turnover. Yeah. So both of those guys had really big games tonight. And there were others too. I mean, Isaiah Collier, 9 for 18 from the field. He went over 5 from 3, but we know that he's a struggling shooter still. 6 rebounds, 11 assists, and only 1 turnover. So, I mean, some unbelievable performances in addition to Walker Kessler's 18 rebounds, 3 blocks, and he pretty much saved the game by blocking Draymond with only a few seconds left in the game. So, I mean, tonight was actually a pretty wild game. They came back, from 10 down with only 3 minutes left and won the game. It's unfortunate they won. I don't want them to win this game. I think they need to lose. But, it is what it is. And Clarkson and Keontae both had really big games.
Yep. We're New Orleans and Jazz now have both 12 losses. So we really have to watch it because, you and I talked before we got on. One of the strong rumors out there right now is there's a deal in place between two teams to move Ingram. They just deciding who gives the best, offer back. So New Orleans is going to tank. That's their, they lost Murray for the year. They're tanking. So we need to really be careful now, wins going forward. So if they do, Clarkson played great. So that makes him marketable. Let's move him off. Right. But we really need, assuming we keep Collins, we got to make sure we use him selectively. He's too good. Right? Because now it's a race to the bottom, and we have to be careful. Let me ask you a question, though. You highlighted 3 players, and I don't disagree with them. But one of the guys in that list, their box score, there was elements of his box score that really annoyed me. And there was elements of his box score that I thought were fantastic. But there was so like of those 3, was there any of them where you're just like, man, I wish there was a difference in that box score?
What 3 players are you talking about?
Collier, Keontae, actually 4 players, Jordan Clarkson and Walker Kessler. I think those are the ones you highlighted.
I don't know. I just glanced at the box score before we got on, so nothing comes to mind that I can see here.
So let me tell you what the one that bugged me. Do you want Collier shooting 18 shots?
Yeah, that's obviously. I don't want a point guard shooting 18 shots. That's a lot of shots.
Particularly a rookie.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's a lot of
That's
shots.
Keontae-ish. And I'm just like, okay, I know you're not a great 3-point shooter. You know you're not a great point shooter. Why are you shooting 5 3-pointers? So everything else is fantastic. Rebounds, assists, no turnovers, right? Or 1 turnover. But I hope we're not seeing a trend where he starts like gunning like Keontae does, because honestly, Isaiah, take the layups, do the assists, get the rebounds, do the hustle. Man, you're standing out with those. Shoot a high percentage. You're taking good shots. We don't need you to shoot 18 shots. Work on your shot in the summer. In the next 2 summers, the shots go up. But I'd rather the guy not shoot 18 shots, honestly.
Yeah, some of those threes were wide open, but boy, he really struggled tonight. I mean, though those 3-point shots, they weren't even close. I mean, he was so far off tonight, but boy, he killed him in the mid range. He got a whole bunch of shots from like 12 feet, 14 feet, 15 feet. In that range, he made a bunch of shots. So yeah, but 18, that's too many. You don't want your point guard shooting 18 shots. Coincidentally, I mean, Steph Curry shot 18 threes tonight. I mean, he went for 6 for 18. I mean, in my opinion, that's absurd. But
Well, can I ask you about that? Because I was going to point out Steph Curry, and you already jumped on it. Does Steph Curry's line remind you of anybody on the Jazz? Does it look Keontae-ish? The
yeah,
normal Keontae?
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
man, dude, what do you do? Like, yeah, you're the great Steph Curry, but
yeah,
that looks like a Keontae line.
yeah. I mean, he hoisted 31 shots. I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot of possessions. So,
Yeah,
and going 6 for 18 from three is, like I said, I know that comes out to be not bad in terms of effective field goal percentage. It's around 50% effective field goal percentage, but still, I mean, 6 for
yeah,
18, that's a lot of threes.
yeah. But it's also you're below league average, which means that other teams, if they're shooting league average, are going to, shoot better than you and win the game, which is what happened here, right? And unfortunately happened for the Jazz. But that's interesting. Let me see if there's anything else like in the box score of the Jazz specifically. I mean, Walker Kessler, the 18 rebounds, just God, this guy's getting good. Uh, I mean, just unbelievable. Like so efficient, doesn't take bad shots. So efficient in scoring. I hope he really works on his free throw percentage again this year. Although, how many did he do? One of two, so 50%. I guess that's his average, 50%. Yeah, Bryce didn't get a lot of time. And, I was annoyed at first that I'm thinking, if we showcase V and Clarkson, that's better for us. So if that's Hardy's strategy, great, right? Let's get rid of one or two of them tomorrow, and then Bryce can get more consistent time. I'm fine with that. That's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Kyle didn't get a lot of time tonight either, and I want Kyle to get more time. And oddly enough, I mean, Micah Potter got more time than Kyle tonight, and I think that should be reversed. I'd rather have Micah Potter get 12 minutes and Kyle get 18. Now, I
Yeah.
think that's a better situation moving forward for the Jazz. I mean, I don't want to be. I honestly don't want Micah Potter completely cut off, but I also want Kyle to play more than Micah Potter.
I
So
agree.
that,
Like,
that's my
like,
feeling.
what? Like, let's face it. Let's have Micah Potter on our team at the end of the bench and making $2 million a year, $3 million a year as a veteran minimum, and he can play into his early 30s. He's made a great living. He doesn't have to work anymore, probably. He should be happy with that. But we know what we're getting with Micah Potter, and he's a good, solid player. But he's a rotation player, if that, right? And so
Yeah.
we probably let's keep him there. Everybody likes him. I like him, but I agree. Like Flip has a chance to be something much better than that, so we got to get him some time. There was one trade I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if you did a podcast on it. It was the Sacramento trade today.
Um, yeah.
Valanciunas.
Yes, I did. I did that. Yeah. I. Well, I think it's good. I think that helps Sacramento. Because I think they needed size in the paint. I mean, Valanciunas isn't a shot blocker,
Right.
but he gives them size in the paint, which I think Sacramento needs because Sabonis isn't that guy. And it also, I'm happy for Sabonis. I mean, Jonas is another Lithuanian, even though Sabonis was born in Portland. He's American. I mean, his dad Arvydas runs Lithuanian basketball. So I think this is good for both of those guys to be together in Sacramento, and I think it helps Sacramento win games this year. I'm still not sold on Sacramento making the playoffs, though. That's my feeling on it.
We're gonna have to see. Like I haven't really thought about it, and none of us know exactly how these things are going to work out, right? So we're guessing with very little information without thinking a lot about it. my initial reaction to it was, yeah, these guys are good friends, so it's good for them. But what does Sacramento really need? They need better defense. I don't think that gets them there, right? I don't think that Valachunas does really anything for them defensively, and they need some better outside shooting because I think they're inconsistent. And I think Sabonis really causes them problems where we've seen in the playoffs, like people back off him at 17 feet and he can't hit it. And so I think there again, it's just kind of another guy clogging the lane. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out for them. Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised with it because I would be thinking they'd be going after a defensive center, not Valachunas. So I was surprised by that one, to be honest with you. But let's see. I mean, they didn't give up a lot for him. I think that Washington signed him, knew that they weren't going to get a lot for him, but they're going to pick up some assets. I think they got a couple of seconds for it. So it's kind of Washington picked something up. Sacramento didn't give up a lot, so not the end of the world. But it just, to me, it doesn't really move the needle for Seattle or Sacramento. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, I posted on X, and I actually posted a picture, and I said, Washington, the Washington Wizards saw what was happening with the federal workforce and being purged more so than any other time in our lifetime. And so they go, well, we're going to just give away all of our players too, and we're going to just fire everybody. So they just they're just getting rid of everybody. I mean, they're getting rid of people for scraps, but I don't blame them. I would
Yeah.
do the same thing. I would try and get draft capital. I mean, they're the worst team in the league by far. It's not even competitive. I mean, their plus minus is so far worse, so much worse than everyone else. They have to just, and I think getting Chris Middleton back in, he's a good locker room guy, which that team desperately needs. So he's getting paid a lot of money, but still, like that team's a mess, like absolute mess. I mean, it's absolute fire sale there, and I would assume that they're shopping other players. Corey Kispert, they should shop him if they can find a taker. I don't think they should have re-signed that guy, and I like that guy, another Gonzaga guy, but yeah, I think they've just made mistake after mistake, and now they're just trying to sell off, which I think they should do.
Yeah, I like you pointed this out about Kuzma, and it's absolutely true. His numbers this year are terrible, just absolutely terrible. I mean, his
Yeah.
3-point shot is in the 20s. I mean, this is the reason that they didn't get a lot for him is he's not playing well, and maybe it's a one-off, like he's on a bad team, he's not motivated. I don't know, but like you look at the contrary, like Collins, like how well he's played this year
Yeah.
versus Kuzma. Teams should not be like shooting for Kuzma, and I don't think there were a lot that were shooting for Kuzma. So I don't think he's going to do a heck of a lot in Milwaukee unless he really was just not motivated in Washington. But I agree with you. They should sell off these guys. They should use their cap space next season to bring in guys that they know they can trade, overpay them a little bit, right, like they did, and then trade them again at the trade deadline and pick up more assets, and that's the game.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing the right thing, but let's face it, they have a long way to go.
Yeah.
They hope to get lucky and hit on a star in the draft because they got next to nothing for Beal. They got a bunch of seconds, and so they've got to pick up assets, and be bad for multiple years in a row, and hopefully they hit on their draft, their draft pick.
Yeah, they've got to change some way somehow. They got to change the culture of that team too. Like it's been bad forever, and it's just brutally bad. I mean that it truly is NBA purgatory. It's just a place you don't want to end up because
Yeah.
you'll go to there to die.
Yeah.
From a statistics and
Yeah.
it's just a miserable place to be. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, anything else you want to mention tonight about?
Yeah, I don't think so. Look.
I mean, there's
Tomorrow's
going to be a
gonna
lot.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Locke.
Okay.
Locke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I listened to Locke today, and Leaf Tulane was filling in for a couple of days, and David was back today, and he explained. I respect the fact he said, "Look, I explained why I was with my kid watching him, and that's just something I decided to take some time off. That's great, right?" But he came back and he made this statement that Well, I've been pretty much right on all my predictions on like the trades, and I just was like, what is this guy talking about? Like, one, you said that no first round picks would be traded this year. Well, if you would have said that fewer first round picks would have come in trades that you thought, okay, I would agree with that because we think that both the Fox trade and the Luca trade should have got a lot more, but first have moved. So that's not correct. You said a few weeks ago that the trade activity was very light this time. We both looked at the statistics on it and said through that date it wasn't true relative to the last 6 years. So that wasn't true. You've said like on multiple times that top 10 players never move, particularly like 25-year-olds. Well, none of us expected it, but clearly they did move. So that was wrong. And we're going to see other like big trades happening. And honestly, the Butler got like the protected top 10 protected or first round pick. What else? Are you going to give more for that Butler? Like he's 35 years old. He's on a 1 year contract. But it's an option of of a Butler. There's not a lot of firsts that are going to come with that trade. I'm sorry, notwithstanding the fact that it's Jimmy Butler, there's just not a lot that's going to come with that. So this has been so like almost everything that he took a position on, he was just like, go back and look at your podcast because they've been completely different from what you're actually saying, except for the fact that I do think teams are reluctant to trade first round picks this year. Other than in big trades, which means that Collins and Colin Sexton probably don't get traded unless we want to sell them for undervalue. So that I do agree with that statement, but like everything else has basically been like that's not exactly how I remember him taking a statement on it.
Yeah. This is precisely one of the many reasons why I can't listen to that guy. But anyway, all right. Yeah, we can both agree that David Locke is delusional. So that's absolutely nothing new.
Yeah,
all right.
But tomorrow's
Yep.
going to be fun.
Hey, by the end of tomorrow, I hope that actually some more things happen for the Jazz. That's all I hope, because I think that it would be nice if some things transpired, and with some luck, they do. So, I mean, the Jazz aren't going to acquire any big trades or anything like. I mean, yeah, if the Luka trade fell into their lap, they'd do it. But the chances of that something like that falling into their lap, well, there's only a few of those left in the league that could fall into their lap, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you may be putting aside your Clarkson jersey after he gets traded tomorrow, and your Keontae jersey. So let's hope you're able to retire those.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see everybody, and we will be back on with more trade talk once more things start rolling in. But everybody, we hope you have a great night, and we will talk to you later.